And next up on the agenda is Steve Durham. As a product manager, Steve explores the inside sales market to identify problems and then develop innovative solutions for those problems. Steve works through all of the steps in releasing a new product, including problem research, market analysis, project scoping, working with development, and implementing new products with new and existing clients. Steve attended the University of Utah and went on to Carnegie Mellon for a Master's of Information Systems and Management. He has worked with Spillman Technologies, General Motors, and consulted for the Meredith Corporation before coming to Inside Sales a year and a half ago. Please join me in welcoming Steve to the Sales Acceleration Summit.
Thank you for the introduction. I'm really excited to talk about Neuralytics and the idea of moving from predictive to prescriptive in your lead scoring. Where I'd like to start with that is the shift in the world that's gone on in terms of shifting from just actions to really being data-driven in what we do. And the way that I'd like to liken that and introduce that is with the idea of running. I'll talk about my particular voyage in that way. So when I started running during my high school age, I didn't have any particular reason to run. I just wanted to run for good health. So I'd put on my shoes and I'd go running. However, as I've gotten older, I've wanted to understand more about my running and see if I could do better at my running. And so I've enlisted my smartphone. My smartphone has a running app that helps track my steps, my speed, my approximate calories burned, and helps me to see when I'm getting better at running, when I'm getting worse at running, and even can provide coaching as I embark on this journey of trying to get better at my running. And now we have the idea of the wearable, which is tracking you all the time and actually starting to proactively make recommendations about what you should do, when you've been sitting too long, when you should go for a run, and maybe how to even improve your running. It's not too hard to imagine that going running in the near future might look something like this guy with multiple cameras, multiple heart rate monitors, all to make sure that you're collecting every piece of data about your exercising and your running. Inside Sales with Neuralytics and our product NeuralView, the goal is to kind of turn this guy into a sales rep and start to track all the data that he is doing as a sales rep in order to make him and his whole team better at their job. So let's talk a little bit about predictive lead scoring and what we're doing kind of in the predictive space as far as Neuralytics and NeuralView goes. With NeuralView, we take data from 5 separate categories and combine it with data from your own CRM in order to make better recommendations about who you should contact and when. Just to give a little bit of an idea of the number of data points that we're able to bring to bear and use to help you with your prediction. We've put a couple of those here on this slide. And the idea is that using Neuralytics and NeuralView, you'll be able to continually improve your model and your predictions in order to continually hone your team's ability to make sure that they're always contacting the best people. And also, through machine learning, that Neuralytics is always making the best recommendations. One of the outputs of NeuralView is called NeuralScore. It is a score of 0 to 100 that predicts a lead's likelihood of closing business with you. You'll notice to the right that we've taken a lot of the data points from that previous slide and shown them in varying sizes because they vary in their influence upon the score and a lead's likelihood to close. However, the NeuralScore predicts likelihood to close, but nothing around actually being able to contact that lead, whether they're likely to engage with you. That's where the prescriptive piece of the lead scoring comes in. As I mentioned, NeuralView is a prescriptive lead scoring product. So let's talk about how that actually goes into play. One of the other outputs of NeuralView is a contactability score. Because InsideSales.com has such a rich data set of communications data, we are able to use that same data that we use to predict closing to predict contactability, or the likelihood that your reps are getting able to contact the lead that they're targeting. So why do we want to do this? What's the purpose behind NeuralView? What's the problem that we're trying to solve? In consulting with customers, frequently I have questions like, which of my prospects is best, worst, and if I know that, what actions can I actually take? When we actually go to analyze a customer's data, we usually find something like this. The gray bar representing the number of leads that the customer has in their CRM, and the yellow being the actual number of leads that they could work. Most customers that I work with have far more leads than they actually have time to work. And so those questions from the previous slide really come to bear. They don't know who's the best or the worst and what to do or how to take action on that, even if I did tell them. One of the first steps of implementing NeuralView is that we actually go into your own data to understand historically what looks like a good lead and what looks like a bad lead. What we do is we then apply the scores to those leads, 0 to 100, to see whether we can actually predict closing behavior with that score. What we hope to see is something that looks like this. As you can see, as the score goes up, the close rate goes up. This tells us that we are in the right ballpark as far as predicting buying behavior using your own data. Now on this slide, what I'm showing is, in the yellow is the number of leads worked by your reps. Now despite looking at the previous slide where we showed that higher scores correlate with more buying behavior, when we look at what reps are actually doing in their CRM, it usually looks something like this. It's what we call the peanut butter effect. The reps are working all the leads indiscriminately, regardless of quality, because they don't necessarily know which leads are much better than others. Of course, they may have some sense of the very best leads, those golden leads, versus the students who are just filling out those regs forms for research purposes or tire kickers. And one of the reasons we see this is because once we actually look at the percentage of leads within that scoring decile, as I like to call it, it's usually representative. They work a certain percentage of each of those, of each of the leads that they have. However, when we actually look at the close rate and apply the graph from earlier, what we can see is that there are leads, especially those in this case lower than 50 or 60, that are vastly overworked, spending way too much time because they're not going to close, versus those leads that are at the high end of the scoring scale, which you can see have a high close rate but aren't being worked nearly enough. The goal of NeuralView is to help to prioritize your reps' workflow, and especially to do that in a very transparent way that they aren't being affected by it. What we want to see is the effort of the reps start to shift to the right, so that they are actually only working those best leads that they possibly can. They're working the 90 to 100s, those A leads, before they ever touch anything below. And eventually, you're going to cut off the bottom half, or the bottom portion at least, of the leads that you just don't want to work because they're not going to close. So let's talk about how we actually algorithmically determine the rep's day and make that choice for them so that they're always working those best leads. Using NeuralSort, one of the features of the Power Dialer inside Sales Communication Platform, we're able to actually plug those numbers in and throughout the day dynamically decide who the rep should talk to at any point. I'll do that using this demonstration. So on the right side, we can see you've got a typical list. no matter how many reps you have, you're going to hit some point where they're not going to be able to call any more people. That's represented by that red line. The problem being that there are these blue people, the people who are much more likely to pick up the phone right now. And what you want to do as a rep is talk to those people. But if you don't know who they are, you're going to dial down to that red line, and then the highly contactable people, those people who are ready to engage, will not be reached today, and maybe you're not going to be able to reach them during the next hour, the next day, or the next month. What NeuralSort does is actually sorts and moves those blue people up to the top so that you're contacting the best possible person during every single hour of every single day. And that's how we achieve this level of prioritization, making sure that reps are always working the best possible person for this possible time. Now, once we've done that, we're able to use some of the other products that Inside Sales has in order to increase the effectiveness and the efficiency to change that number and actually work with more leads. Once we have that prioritization in place, which is the hardest thing to do, we can pull all sorts of managerial levers in order to change the number of leads that you work with to fit that curve. So why is it so important to follow the algorithms and just do what the machine says? Let's talk a little bit about Outboundengine. Outboundengine is an early adopter of NeuralView and has been having some really great success. Now, when we initially implemented with Outboundengine, I asked our senior operations manager, what is it you want to do? What does success look like for this product? And her response was, I want to remove the human element from my sales process. We said, okay, we can do that. So we set up that dynamic sequence with NeuralSort, and we made sure that was the only choice the reps had. They were going to be forced to follow NeuralView's recommendations on who to call and when. And what we wanted to see was that their efforts were going to line along with the scores, and that we're going to start to see that prioritization happen. We recently caught up with Outboundengine to see what some of their outcomes have been, some of their sales outcomes had been since we implemented Inside Sales at about June 2014. And what we found was that their average MRR per month is up 40%, but yet their headcount is only up 8%. So we decided to dig a little bit deeper and see what effects NeuralView might be having on that lift. What we found was really exciting. When we went back to look at what the impact of NeuralView was on those numbers, what we found was pretty great. So 30% contact rate lift. They're contacting more people. The reps are speaking to decision makers. That lift in MRR, 24% of the 40% was attributable to NeuralView after we took out seasonality, hiring, seniority, and other marketing spend. The best part is that rep productivity is up 19%. They're closing more deals. And then finally, those deals are larger. The deal size is growing. The reason that they had such great outcomes is because they followed the machine learning algorithms. What we found falls in line with what Ian Ayers says in the Harvard Business Review, which is that instead of having the statistics as a servant to expert choice, the expert becomes a servant of the statistical machine. Let's let Inside Sales predictive products do that heavy statistical lifting and then have the experts come in to help make sure that that's correct. I want to thank you for your time and your attention. Please stay around for other great presentations. If you have any questions, please visit the virtual booth.